And I will switch. Thank you for remembering that, Diamond. And I am going to, let's see, that's what I want. Yeah. Oh, so I wanted to also mention, if you all have registered for this, you'll be on our little email list, and we won't spam you. You'll get maybe a couple emails a month just letting you know what's coming up. And in this year, we've got a lot of great things slated. We've got some peer consultancies around the intersections of health and climate change in these maps. And we're also going to look at some of the great work that's happening in Arizona and in Columbus, and potentially also back in Atlanta, where Greenlink is based. So we're going to be, over the course of the year, looking at a lot of great work in different cities and exploring these intersections between health and energy burden and a bunch of the other indicators that we'll talk about today. And with that, I will hand it off to Jelly, who will kind of give us an intro of what we're going to be going into today, and reveal the secrets behind GEM 2.0.
Awesome, thank you. Mina or Diamond, do you want to queue up the slides for our agenda? And so I can do a little quick overview, but while they're doing that, hello. I know some similar faces here, but some new ones. My name is Jelly, and I am the Greenlink Equity Map Strategic Development Manager, and it's a pleasure to be here today. But we have the fun activity to actually guide you through what is going to come with the new platform that's coming out, GEM 2.0, that will be here in May. Next slide.
All right, slowly but surely, there we go.
Oh, there you go. All right, so today, myself and my colleague Shire, we're gonna give you a background of GEM 2.0 and talk to you in depth about the new features that are going to be coming. Then we're actually going to break out into breakout rooms and guide you through how to access GEM 2.0 by resetting your password and getting into the new platform itself. Then we'll have some time for question and answers. So if you have questions, please be writing them down and sending them through the chat, and we'll make sure to get to them by the end of the day. But if there's anything here that you want to add, please let us know. But this is what we're going to go through today. And without further ado, let's get started. Next slide. Awesome. So what is GEM 2.0? Well, it is the updated version of the Greenlink Equity Map. So some of you have been able to play in here before through the legacy version that we had. But now we're taking all of that information and we are going to revamp it with some new data updates, an entire new user interface, so making it even more accessible to the everyday person without much expertise in the equity mapping space, and then just overall improvements in the user experience. Like I mentioned before, there are going to be some new indicators and functionalities within the platform, but overall it is still here to serve as a platform to continue to help cities and community-based organizations understand distributional inequities within their neighborhoods and help drive data-driven decisions to improve equity in climate and health space. So yeah, this is what we have to look forward to. Next slide, please. Sweet. And I'm going to actually pass it to Shar, our data scientist here.
All right, thank you, Jelly. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming today. My name is Shar. I'm a data scientist here at Greenlink. So I primarily help with the GEM platform and kind of working on all the data sets that will be integrated with it. So I'm going to try to go through some exciting upcoming indicators for this year that'll be integrated with our platform. So we have around 5 indicators and a couple of different functionalities that will be coming in hot. So I'm going to kind of go through these real quickly. So we have urban tree canopy, or also known as UTC coverage. So that's the percentage of trees that will be able to be visualized within our neighborhoods. Urban heat island data, so UHI data, also AKA. This will allow us to better understand areas within a city that might be warmer compared to surrounding areas due to heat absorbing surfaces such as pavements or roads and stuff like that. So we'll be able to visualize temperature data now within our cities, which is super exciting. And a lot of these indicators we haven't developed yet, or they're in development. So they will be coming in throughout the year. We'll have an exciting redlining layer. So essentially, this will be the redlining boundaries that were put in place in the mid 1900s. So we'll be able to visualize systemic inequities that kind of affect our different neighborhoods. And then we'll have transportation burden, which will allow us to better understand the accessibility and affordability of transportation within our census tracts. Really exciting, we'll have a user data input function. So this will allow all of you to bring your own data to the platform and integrate it with the current GEM indicator. So for example, if you had a data set such as supermarket data, and you wanted to overlay that with something like energy burden in the GEM platform, you would be able to take that data set and upload it yourself and then overlay that data onto the current GEM data. So that'll be a really exciting new feature to be added. Change over time. Currently, we can only visualize 1 year within GEM. And in this 2.0 version, we'll have exciting 2019 data that'll be available. But with our change over time functionality, you'll be able to visualize data from 2013 through 2019. So you'll be able to take into account, data from, let's say 2014 versus 2016, and kind of see the trend between these 2 years and see how your city, your communities within your city have made progress over time. And then lastly, we have the equity index, which is really exciting as well. We're currently working with Denver on this project and have piloted with a couple other cities, but this essentially will allow us to better visualize the relationships between energy burden and some of our other indicators rolled up into kind of one final score. So you'll have the ability to go in with your community, kind of figure out how to weight these different indicators based on the importance for your community. And then those weights will be applied to our different indicator values and kind of rolled up into this final equity index score that you'll be able to visualize within your cities. So these are kind of some exciting new indicators and functionalities coming in with 2.0 and the new year.
Yeah, thanks, Shire. I think the only thing I would add is that every other indicator that we have, it will still be in this platform. So we're just moving all that in and then adding these things. So you can still overlay all the data that we had. There will still be city boundaries. You can still download the CSV and the PNG files as a county. And then also we actually have updated a Center for Disease Control places data. So we will have national coverage for every census tract with that. So that is really exciting. So I actually want to take a moment and have some interactive, little piece with the audience here. I would like to see some of your reactions of the things that you're excited for to come. So if you want to just like drop those in the chat or, share something out loud, feel free to chime in right now because there's a lot of cool stuff coming. I saw that we had some exciting things for the redlining layer, which yes, it's extremely important, especially for that historical context. Transportation, tree cover. Okay, listen. All right, cool. This is really cool. Sweet. And like Shar mentioned, these things are going to be rolled out over the course of the year. So this is still a 2022 project. So they won't all be in there right at the launch in May, but they will be rolled out over time. So yeah. So without further ado, next slide, I thought it'd be fun if we can take a deep dive into the GEM 2.0 platform itself. All right. Next slide. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so who has access to GEM? I'm moving faster than I think. of course, every city staff that is currently using GEM, you will sign up and through your email, and you will still have access to it. Later on, we're actually going to go through how we can reset our passwords to get into the new version of GEM. But those of you who have access will continue to have access as we transition over. Community-based organizations that are local and that make under a certain amount every year will also continue to have free access through October of this year. So I actually know some of you that have signed up this year through that. So thank you for showing up and being here today, representing our CBOs. And anybody else interested in accessing GEM, feel free to schedule a free demo with us so we can actually go through the platform and more in depth. And we've restructured these demos to not just talk at you, but actually give you some time to play with us in the space. So I really recommend you bringing your expertise within your field to work with us through the demo. And then talk to me and Matt, our CEO, more in depth about how we can get you access to GEM. So. And thank you, Diamond. Put the link in the chat. If you want to book a demo, please feel free to do that with us. And if any of the times online don't work for you, feel free to send me a message directly and we can schedule a personalized time for you. Cool. So next slide, please. All right. So let's actually get into the platform itself. Thank you, Diamond.
Do we want to address a couple of the questions?
Okay, cool.
Or let's see, I think I saw a couple. If Diana had a question about like just wanting to hear a little bit more about the equity index. Is that something we should address now? We could also wait, however you want to do it.
We could talk a little bit about that now. I think it'd be helpful to kind of see once we can get into to see Denver, but since Diamond has worked closely on that, I would kind of refer to some of her level of expertise. Matt is also here if you would like to chime in a little bit about that now, and then we can visually see it here in a minute. So.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to give a brief overview of the equity index, but also Shelly's going to show that visually, which makes it look even more cooler than what it sounds like. But basically, we are piloting this equity index concept with about 5 different cities across the country. And basically, it's a process in which you'll be able to take any of the indicators within GEM, and we're basically going to be evaluating them based off of what communities within that city have identified as a need. For example, being able to evaluate energy burden as opposed to income, and all of the racial demographic indicators within GEM as well, and taking that and coming up with what we're calling an equity score or an equity report card. And so what you'll be able to do is weight all of the different indicators within GEM, and then you'll come up with an auto-populated report card that will tell you the score and show you how your city is doing. And so this is very critical because we can use this as a monitoring piece, but also an evaluation to see, okay, this is where we are right now, but also where do we want to see ourselves and go in 5 years or in 10 years, and how we can improve, but also what areas should we be improving. So for example, if we see that asthma rates is a significant issue, asthma rates are very high in a city, then that will actually tell us that we may want to create some type of initiative or program centered around asthma, for example. But the other piece to this, in addition to this technical side of the equity index, is making sure that we are being very meaningful in this co-collaboration or co-creation process with our cities, but also with our communities and community-based organizations. Yes, we do have a really cool tool that can show us how to do what the numbers look like, but essentially we really want to make sure that we are creating this process with our cities and with our communities and community-based organizations to understand what their needs are and what their priorities are as well. But also, Jelly's going to give us a really great overview of that as well. Hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, that was great. And thank you. You actually weaved into something I wanted to make sure I mentioned, because I saw that David had a question in the chat about, well, the needs of the communities be information that we can access as well. So like Diamond mentioned, one of the really cool things about the GEM platform is that it has been intentionally made to be used alongside community members themselves. So getting that direct feedback on the ground is critical for the community-based organizations that are working with them and to serve them, and then bring them into the spaces with city government. So one really good example of that, and I know we have some people from Philly on the call here, so shout out to Philly, where they actually recognize some of the most energy burden areas in their city and created climate justice like focus groups, energy burden focus groups, where they could actually have the communities directly talk to the city staff and get those direct experiences relayed to how housing and energy, how they were impacted by housing and energy burdens. And so really trying to narrow the information gap between the experts in the field here and the community's lived experiences is a huge part that we want to be worked alongside. So we may not have the direct inputs from every community because that is specific to those who are working in the areas, right? Atlanta cannot figure out what's equitable for Philly or for Brooklyn or something like that. It's very specific to your community. So it's intentionally made for you to work alongside communities that way. And I will speak as a former community organizer and community engagement facilitator. This is a really critical work when it comes to really aligning a lot of the policies that are to be in place that really and genuinely represent the community's lived experiences. So, but yeah, if there's any other questions with that, I think we can touch on those later, but I would love to get in the platform itself. Cool. All right. And Diamond and Mina, or Diamond, do you want to queue up the, or I can do that. Oh, sorry. Can you all see this?
Yep.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. And then Shar is going to help me navigate this today, but I thought that we would start by asking the audience if there is a particular city that we would like to explore while we're in here right now. If y'all
Well,
can
I'm always going to say Kansas City. So.
Okay, we'll start there. And I'm biased because I am from there. So we can start there, but we can also move to some other places. And then I will give it to Shar.
All right, so as you guys can see, this is our 2.0 platform. Jelly just typed in Kansas City into the places bar at the top. So when you want to search for a city or your region that you're looking at, you want to put that in at that top bar. So that's very similar to our legacy GEM platform. On the left side here, we have, as you can see, Jelly's scrolling through the number of indicators that we have. So Jelly, if you want to click on energy burden in there. So yeah, so equity indicator 1, Jelly selected energy burden. So now we can kind of visualize how energy burden is spread across Kansas City on a census tract level. So as you might notice, this is very similar to how it is in our original platform as well. So we can choose on the left side here, we have the check boxes for electricity, gas, and water. So you can kind of select whether you want energy burden, meaning electricity plus gas, or if you want to add water in there as well. And then we kind of have this rolling scale from, so right now, if you select electricity and gas, Jelly, on the left-hand side, we have 1.42% to 18%. So that kind of shows us the scale within the city. So if we want to kind of see the top 10% or something like that of energy burden, we can kind of scroll that little dot scale to the right or to the left to kind of visualize that and scale it down. On the right-hand side here, we have a legend. So I guess before I go into that, you can kind of see in 2.0, the colors and our whole interface has changed. So now we kind of have oranges to visualize rather than the purples that we used to have in our legacy GEM. So we can see on the right for the legend, we kind of have a scale of colors in here. So we have the lowest being 1.42% energy burden up to the highest. So the darkest orange kind of shows okay, this is a census tract with the highest energy burden, as Jelly's kind of hovering on right now. So, so that's kind of one indicator, but let's kind of try to overlay these indicators here. So why don't you overlay like asthma rates on top, Jelly? Yeah, so we have the ability to overlay another indicator similar to Legacy Gem as well. So right now we've overlaid asthma rates on top of energy burden here. So as you can see, similarly to how I described for energy burden, we have a scale for asthma rates. So 7.4% to 12.9%, which is listed under the asthma rates equity indicator right there. So if Jelly, you want to scroll that over a little bit, we can kind of see and narrow it down into like the top 10% asthma rates, for example. I did want to highlight here the legend on the right, because the legend changes a little bit once you overlay these two indicators. So when you have two indicators on top of each other, we kind of have a different color scheme going on here. So now we have yellows, greens, and blues. So for example, if we look at something that is a dark blue color here, that means that the asthma rates might be really low, but the energy burden might be very high here. So the bottom right-hand corner of this legend grid. And if we look at kind of this yellow, if it comes back, yeah, so this yellow piece here, we have a 31% energy burden and 13% asthma rate. So this is kind of showing that, okay, we have a really high energy burden as well as a really high asthma rate in the census tract. So it shows up in our dark yellow here, which is that kind of upper right-hand corner of our legend grid. And then similarly in our legend box, we also kind of have a description of our different indicators. So if you're curious as to what these indicators mean, you can kind of just look over here on the right in the legend box. And then also, Jelly, if you want to click the download button in that bottom right hand, yeah. If you want to download the data, similar to Legacy Gem, we can also download data in a CSV or a PNG format. So if you click that download data button, it should quickly export a CSV, which you guys will be able to open and analyze on your own computers. Yeah, or you can download the map, which will quickly download a PNG, which will essentially be a screenshot of kind of what you're looking at on the screen. All right, and then Jelly, if you want to click the city boundaries button, so on the upper right-hand corner of the download box here, that top right-hand icon up in there, yeah, there we go. That kind of shows us the city boundaries in here. So we had this in Legacy Gem as well. Those boundaries were kind of a neon green kind of color, but now in 2.0, they are black. So you can kind of see, okay, if you're trying to look at the actual boundary of Kansas City, this is kind of how you overlay it. So you can better understand which census tracts to look at within your city. All right, so yeah, I mean, Jelly, if you want to click around a couple other indicators for Kansas City, just to kind of visualize some of them, and then we can kind of move on to maybe Denver so we can look at how the equity index looks on 2.0. Yeah, so now we have eviction rates and asthma rates overlaid. If you want to click on, yeah, why don't we search for Denver in the places? Yeah, there we go. All right, Denver, Colorado, we go. All right, so if you want to take out asthma rates, Jelly, just click not selected to take out your indicator, and then click on equity index. This is kind of how the equity index looks within a city. So for Denver, Denver picked around 10 different indicators to incorporate into their equity index. So we have, excuse me, we have income stress all the way to BIPOC meeting. This is kind of our racial demographics in there, incorporated into one indicator. And then they came up with a series of weights for these different indicators. So for example, income stress might not be, as important for their community, whereas electricity and gas burden households above 6% is extremely important, which is why it's weighted as a 10. And these indicators and these weights are kind of incorporated into one, kind of rolled up into one score. So Jelly, if you hover over a census tract in there, we can kind of see, yeah, so census tract 9.02 has an equity index of 68, whereas if you keep scrolling, Jelly, yeah, so another indicator might have an equity index of 52. So these equity index scores roll from 1 being the lowest to 100 being the highest, meaning a score of 100 will be the most equitable census tract within a city, and 1 being the lowest. So in here, the darker colors, which this will be changing, but the darker colors right now represent the most equitable census tracts within the city. And yeah, and you can similarly download the equity index scores in a CSV or PNG format. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to go through that so everyone could visualize it, because I know there were a couple of questions on that as well.
While we're in this Denver view, I'm going to abuse my power as a co-facilitator to jump in here. Can you talk a little bit about this is sort of the first equity index that's available on the map for Denver. And again, each location is only going to be able to see their own city. So you won't be able to jump around like this. But can you talk a little bit about like how you got to these weights as the default ones that come up right now, and how that might look for future cities that might work on it?
Yeah, I might have Diamond chime in here, because I know, Diamond, you were a part of that process for Denver, but kind of how we were talking about, or Diamond was mentioning earlier, how your city might go in and talk to your community members and make sure that you'll have kind of a collaborative process where you go in and you look at a series of indicators and you kind of narrow it down to figure out the indicators that are more important, most important to your, and most critical to your community. So for example, when Denver went through this process, they came up with these 10 different indicators, and then they went kind of through a survey process within their community to figure out, okay, how do we want to weight all these different indicators? So they kind of had a whole community-based process that they went through to come up with this list and then these sets of weights. So similar to that, for other cities, you will not be able to visualize this equity index until you guys go through the same process that Denver went through. So you will have to narrow it down to a slew of indicators. So have your kind of like your final 10 or 12 indicators, and then weights for that before you guys can actually visualize the equity index in your platform.
Yeah, thanks, Shar. You covered that good. The only other thing that I'll mention is that what we're planning to do as a part of this equity index process is to create a process guide so that cities know how exactly, or like what best practices are for working with communities and working with community-based organizations. So that is a critical piece in order to even get to this step of building out this equity index for your city, is making sure that you're going through that process guide that we're working on, and that you're being very equitable with working with communities in your city. Awesome. This was really amazing. Thank you so much, Shar. Thank you so much, Jelly. I was like, I've seen this 2.0 many times, but I always seem to get very excited every time we go back and take a look at it once again. So thank you so much for doing that demonstration. And I also see that we had tons of different questions in the chat. So we're going to go ahead and let's see if we can pin the both of you so that we can get this Q&A started for us. So thank you again. And let's see what questions we have in the chat.
Yeah, I can start if that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
let's see, David had a question about, which David, maybe you can come off mute and reword it. Will the needs of communities be information that we can access as well? So I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but would love to hear more about that.
I had asked that question before you had run through the explanation, and it's
Okay,
very apparent that we can see what they scored on the tool. So that's answered. Thank you.
great, thank you. And then there was another question. Let's see. Laura in Kansas City, does it show the data sources for these indicators somewhere in the legend? So I think that was for not the index, but for the legend. Or Laura, if there's more to say, please feel free to unmute.
Sorry, eating. Yeah, it's just because, you know, when we're taking this to council, and especially we're taking this to people that might be adverse to some of the answers we got on this, it'd be nice to know where the data came from, the year it came from. I know in Kansas City, we don't have all this data every year. So, oh, and
Yeah.
look, there's a link to data sources.
I was gonna say, yeah, thanks, Simon. I was gonna say, we have a whole link to our data sources there. That's gonna be updated, but like Shar said, all this will also be 2019 data. So it'll be the most updated version of it, but you can actually see where a lot of that came from. One example I mentioned was the updated CDC places data that's going to be nationwide. So that is important. We also have some eviction data that is still from Stanford, if I believe, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, so there's a whole list there. So you can actually review with your team where it's getting it from. And then also like I can speak to the new Princeton, the other fancy, thank you, the other fancy one. But Shai can speak to also the urban tree canopy data, heat island data as well. Those are some things where her magic is going on behind the scenes. So some new methodologies that are going on behind that. So that's also included in this as well. So we try to improve some of the existing data or the lack thereof too behind the scenes. So that is Shai. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Jelly. Yeah, I think Jelly pretty much covered it. As we create new indicators, we'll be adding that to our data sheet as well. Just to talk about urban tree canopy cover and the urban heat island data set real quick. Those are kind of going through an extensive satellite imagery analysis. So a lot of those come from geospatial analysis and satellite images. So there's something called the National Land Cover Database, which we'll be referencing for our urban tree canopy cover data set. And there's also a satellite called MODIS, which we'll be referencing for our heat island data to get surface temperatures for you all.
So just to make that point a little more clear, those are ones that Shar is actually producing as novel data sets. Those don't exist anywhere else. So those are being constructed by her for the purpose of being added to GEM so that it's accessible to all of you all. So it's not just like repurposing something that NASA just published and dropping it in here. There's an extensive amount of R&D underway in order to make that available.
Great. Once again, I'm going to pop in here with my own question. Can you talk a little bit about when you were looking at the map before you got to the index, there was a scale where you could you sort of filter for what percentage of the indicator was visible. I'm wondering if you could, like, that part is a little bit confusing to me, so maybe I missed it, but like if you scale to the largest percentage, does that mean that you're seeing all of the census tracts? I guess maybe you could talk a little bit about how that works, or maybe show it one more time. That would be helpful.
Sure. Jelly, if you want to share your screen one more time, I can walk through that. Yeah, if you just want to click on energy burden. Yeah, so this is the scale bar that Mina was just referring to on the left-hand side here. So we have 0.73 to 10.27. So if we keep it just as the way it is, this is all of our census tracts are listed from the smallest value being 0.73% energy burden to the highest value being, or the maximum value for this particular area being 10.27. But if we moved that that little dot on that scale bar all the way to the right, then it would just show our maximum value in here. So it basically takes out all these other data points and kind of highlights our maximum value on for energy burden. But if we moved this to all the way to the left side to how it was before, this kind of shows all the energy burden values across all census tracts. So Jelly, if you want to move that a little bit to the right, so like maybe like, yeah, right there. Yeah, so this basically is taking out, the lowest percentage of census tracts. So anywhere between 0.73 and where this dot is lying on the scale. So say this dot is lying on 1.7%. It's basically saying, okay, now we're looking at all census tracts that are 1.7% energy burden and higher. So as we move the scale bar towards the right, towards 10.7, we're essentially decreasing the amount of census tracts that we're looking at, because we're essentially filtering it out to say, okay, now we're looking at the top 50% of energy burden census tracts within this city.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So there's some, I'm just going through the questions here in the chat. Does anyone have some they want to verbalize? If not, I will keep going through the chat, but please feel free to unmute or raise your hand. For now, maybe we can answer David's questions. Do the downloads still include census tracts? I think the answer is yes.
Yes. The downloads will look very similar to how the current downloads are. So they'll be by census tract, and they'll have the census tract and county listed as well.
Laura, thanks for raising your hand. Go for it.
Hey, yeah, my question is, so I know you said we'd be able to upload our own data into this. So my question is, say Kansas City does a more updated eviction program than the Princeton data, which it looks like was at 2016. Will we be able to overlay that data in place of one of your equity ones, or is it just a separate piece? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that
makes sense. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jelly. You first.
Okay, she's a data guru, but I'll give it a shot. So yes, that's true. And actually, to kind of show you what that would look like, while we're here, this is something we forgot to mention, but this is why we're actually in Denver, because this is something that their user input would. So this is one of theirs. They actually, and also Matt, feel free to jump in here as well, because they were working closer on this project than me, but they were actually able to put in their own data by looking at all the commercial buildings and giving them an Energy Star rating. So, and then you can still be able to see the energy burden, for example, just like Shar mentioned, where is high energy burden in relation to all of the data that they put in these buildings. If that makes sense. So Shar, or yeah, Matt, you want to add on to that?
If you just zoom like real far in, you'll get a much better picture of what we're talking about with this. So these are actually lat-long data points that are coming from the city. And this is information from their benchmarking ordinance that's in place. And you can see things pop up here, like this is information that they provided. So the building ID, the Energy Star score, the site energy use intensities is all their information. And then they're able to place any of the indicator 1, indicator 2 type information. They're actually going to use this in conjunction with the index so that they're able to draw what their own community defined equity index scores are going to be, and then identify the buildings that are struggling with energy performance as under resourced facilities and properties that will be eligible for certain kinds of assistance. So that's just kind of one particular use case, but that's how this one's going to be applied, at least first, for Denver.
Yeah, and just to add to that, when you add in this customizable data set, so when you add in your eviction data, for example, it'll be listed as kind of an additional indicator in there. It wouldn't replace a current indicator. So it'd just be in addition to what we currently have in the platform.
Great. I think we have time for one or two more questions, but everyone is please welcome to book a demo and you can get into this even more with Jelly. I wanted to grab this question from Ann Lynn. Can you talk about how some of the indicators may be measuring the same thing? For example, energy burden and income stress potentially.
Oh.
Go ahead, Shar.
Yeah, so I might have Jelly or Diamond speak to this one because I think when we go in and create these different indicators, we're doing this based on a user discovery basis. So we kind of go out to our users and figure out what do they want, what's important to all of you all, and then we represent this in the platform. So for example, energy burden and income stress, even though those are two different indicators, we've kind of had a use case for adding both of these to the platform. So energy burden takes into account, the percentage that a household might spend on energy compared to their total yearly income, whereas income stress just kind of puts into perspective their median income for the year. So Jelly, if you want to add something to that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty good overview. There are some distinctions between that. So I think if you were to look at those overlay, you'll see some people who are extremely burdened financially by able to see not only how much they're spending on housing. So that's about a strong percentage of their income going towards our mortgage or their rent, including, again, what's going towards the utilities. So if that's taking up 60% of their income, well, that's a lot, right? So they're in addition to one another, you're able to see really what the financial distress and burden is overall. So there are different categories of, I guess, more in-depth categories of the financial stress as a whole. So if they're only making, $15,000 a year on their median income, but they're spending, again, more than 50% of that on both their rent and also their utilities, well, that is going to be extremely high housing and energy burden. That makes sense.
Great. Let's move in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Diamond.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think I saw one last question in the chat. I want to make sure that we get to it from Allison. So the 2.0 shows correlation by stacking these indicators to create an index, which is awesome. But does the 2.0 also include the ability to drill down or cross tabulate the indicators? So it looks like being able to see, for example, energy cost burden for BIPOC households in low income, low stress areas for any geography. So, and Allison, are you, I guess to make sure, are you talking about for the equity index or just for in 2.0 to be sure? Feel free to unmute too.
Yeah, sorry, I'm up in Canada, so I'm not one of your members. So I'm sorry if I should already know this, but I'm jealous of this.
Thanks for joining.
Not gonna lie. But yeah, the work that we've done the deep cross tabulation sort of for the practitioner to really drill down into design and evaluation. And this, I haven't done the index and I like it a lot for like kind of creating hotspots. But for the purposes of design and evaluation of programs or policies, the cross tabulation is kind of necessary to really get into the target groups, like people who are living in a certain type of building, who are renters, who are in low income and have high stress or energy burdens. So can you do that with either the equity index or the Greenlink Equity Map overall? I lost you guys.
No, you're good. Matt, do you want to answer that question?
Sure. So when you're building your own map in the visual, you can obviously put the two indicators side by side. If you're building the index, you can select, up to 10. If you were building your own extract to do the cross tabs that way, you can also do that through this selection of indicators and downloading the CSVs, which is frequently the way that we've done so. In the GEM reports that have been published on the webpage is like the standalone white papers, is looking at a lot of the basically constructing our own data extract of that particular location, and doing those correlations, and in some cases some more advanced statistics and regressions built off of that data set.
Okay, great. So yeah, so it's corollary, right? Like it's correlation as opposed to cross tabulation. You're not drilling down on a particular, like on renters, but it's saying that this is where there's a high renter area, and there's a high energy cost burden in this area.
Yeah. So as you download the CSV file, you've got the individual data points there. And you can do that to collect the set of indicators, and then you could build your crosstabs from that. That's what I'm saying.
Right on. That's very cool. Okay, thanks so much.
Right. Thanks, everyone. These are awesome questions, and there's going to be opportunity to go more into this in your demo. I think for now, we wanted to give you all a really important few minutes to sign up, to get your login ready to be able to use this next version of GEM.
Yeah, thank you so much for queuing that up, Mina. So I've just dropped a link here in the chat, and I know we were originally planning to do breakout groups, but we got so tied up with all these amazing questions. So thank you all so much. But I think it's totally fine because you all can still actually navigate to the link that I've just provided in the chat. And let's actually do a screen share, and I can walk folks through that as well. 1 second. Okay, so I'm hoping that everyone can see my screen, and hopefully by now you all have been able to click that link. So if this is your very first time signing up for GEM, then you're just going to click here on this button that says sign up, and you will have to go through the sign up process with us. And so that'll take a few minutes, as it'll ask you just a few questions about your phone number, your organization, the city that you're interested in as well. So that process should be fairly easy, just general information like you would with any other type of sign up. And then it'll take maybe a couple hours for you to get approved through that sign up process, because someone on our Greenlink team on the back end will have to go in and then approve you for that. But if you are a returning user of GEM, and this is not for GEM 2.0, if you've ever just logged into the regular gem.equitymap.org website, then you will want to click login. And so if you click login, you'll see my information is automatically in here, but yours probably is not. And so what you'll want to do is you'll want to click don't remember your password. Once I've clicked this, I will be navigated to this reset your password section. And so what you'll want to do is you'll want to type in the email address that is associated with your regular GEM account. So it's probably going to be your organization's email address or your city staff email address as well. Then you'll click send email. Once you've clicked send email, don't be alarmed because it's probably going to take about 24 hours for you to receive an email from us. Make sure that you check that your spam or your other inboxes to make sure that you do receive that email. But once you do receive it, you are going to want to click on that, and you're wanting to initiate that password reset. So you'll be able to reset whatever new password, secure password that you have, and then you'll be able to access the GEM platform. So it should be a very easy process. Again, if you do not receive the email right away, that's totally fine. Don't be alarmed. But if it has been over 24 hours, definitely do reach out to us and we'll try to troubleshoot and see if there's any issues. But other than that, the password reset should be fairly easy. Make sure that you do the password reset. That is the only way that you'll be able to get access to 2.0, but also make sure that you share this out to all of your colleagues as well who have access to GEM so that they can do the password reset as well. So that should be a fairly easy process. Again, we're here to support you all. We're going to be doing or offering additional times for office hours and demos if you need any support with this process. Again, 2.0 is really cool, but there's a lot of things to go through. So we definitely understand, and we'll be here for you all if you need any support or have any questions. All right. Anything else or any other questions or things I missed, Jelly, Shar?
I don't think so. I went ahead and dropped the step-by-step information in the chat just in case you missed anything. So feel free to copy and paste that, or again, reach out to me and I can guide you through it again one-on-one.
Amazing. Thank you so much for doing that, Jelly. I'm going to drop this link in the chat again, but also we always send a follow-up email to everyone who has joined the community of practice. Even if you signed up and didn't join, we send the email out, and we'll make sure to include this link in case you weren't able to grab it, so that you'll be able to go back and do that password reset as well. And we'll include the instructions that Jelly just put in the chat too. Cool. Is anything else? All right. Well, with that, we surprisingly have 3 minutes left, but I did just want to thank everyone for coming out, joining us for our April Community of Practice call. Our next one is going to be on May 26th, so feel free to join us. The link, thank you, Mina, just put the link in the chat so you all can sign up for it right away. Don't forget to sign up for that, as well as our demos and our office hours. If you have any questions or any support that you need, feel free to reach out to us. But with that, thank you all so much. And I guess also with our last few minutes, I will flag that this is my last community of practice, joining as a co-host, as I will be leaving my position at Greenlink in order to support my nonprofit, Girl Plus Environment. But yes, this is a very sad, bittersweet moment, but I just wanted to thank this amazing group, this amazing practitioners who have been very integral parts of the equity space and of the climate and energy space. So thank you all for your support, and I can't wait to join next month as a participant.
Thank you, Diamond. She has been absolutely critical to the growth and the sustainability of GEM, and actually building community online, which is extremely hard to do nowadays. So really, it is bittersweet because we all support you in your journey, but thank you for still being a part of this and giving us a positive send-off. But yeah, stay connected and follow her because she is one heck of a woman, y'all, and Girl Plus Environment is her organization. So stay tuned. All right.
Thank you.
Well, again, thank you guys so much for attending. Again, feel free to follow up with us one-on-one if you need anything, but have a wonderful day and we will see you later as people drop off.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks all. Bye.